Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special media forum being held under the theme Think Fire Safety. Think Fire Safety. We want to thank you for tuning in, whether you are at home, or thank you for being present here at the Fire Department of St. Martin to, get some information on fire safety and prevention. I'm surrounded by some very knowledgeable gentlemen who I'll begin to introduce. From my furthest right, you have Mr. Timothy Bailey. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree with a dual major in civil engineering and environmental engineering. Since 2010, he has served as a public servant with the Ministry of RAMI, also known as Public Works. In his current role as a senior permit evaluator, he is responsible for supervising permit evaluators within the Department of Permits. Additionally, Mr. Bailey oversees the evaluation of large and complex projects, ensuring compliance with regulations and contributing to the development and sustainability of infrastructure. Mr. Timothy Bailey, welcome. Mr. Kirk Richardson is to my farthest left. He is a prevention officer and has worked for 22 years at the Fire Department of St. Martin. 19 of those 22 years has been in the prevention department, where he advises different government departments and architects. Mr. Kirk Richardson, thank you for joining us. To my immediate right, we have Mr. Samuel George. Mr. George works at the Princess Juliana Airport Aircraft Rescue and Fire Department. He currently functions as a training and fire prevention officer within the fire department. His tasks entail training and development for the fire department and fire prevention and safety for the airport. He has been employed at the airport for 18 years and he enjoys doing his job. Thank you, Mr. Samuel George, for being here. And to my immediate left, we have Mr. Silvanico Pauletta. He has dedicated his last 17 years of work to the St. Martin Fire Department and currently serves as the head of the section of fire prevention, education training within the St. Martin Fire Department. He holds key expertise in disaster preparedness and response, as well as safety and risk. Fun fact, he has a background in industrial business engineering. However, he sidelined that to serve the people of St. Martin. Thank you, Mr. Paulette, and again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And I want to open the mics to you and ask you just to give a little bit of opening remarks. And if you are finding it difficult what to say, you may think on this question. Why is a forum like this important? Why is it important for persons to think fire safety? You may go, I'll start with my farthest left.
As long people are getting injured or even lose life to fires or the hard-earned property, it matters to educate and discuss fire safety, as we want to prevent this kind of loss. It can be prevented, and through this forum, we want to give people tools, knowledge and skills to prevent loss through fire by taking measures on fire safety.
Thank you very much.
To add on to what Mr. Paulette just said, the prevention department, we are all about saving lives and trying to make fires smaller. By doing so, we go into fire safety, and during the course of this forum, we'll continue elaborating on how we keep the fire small and what we do in the prevention department.
Thank you very much. Mr. Richardson. Oh, Mr. Bailey. I'm still getting familiar with the faces to the names.
Hello all. Thank you for having me here as a guest, first and foremost. And it's important to have a forum like this so that we can inform the public on what is necessary, especially when they're putting in for a new building permit. That's why I was invited here, so the public could know and be aware of what all needs to be put in place when submitting for a building permit and what fire safety needs to be in place as well. It's good that the public knows these things, so the process could go much quicker and we have less incidents within our community when it comes to building fires and any kind of fire that's coming around within our community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. Mr. George?
Yes, thank you for having me as a guest. We all know that fire is one of the greatest destruction that can happen, and public education and fire safety is one of those tools that is employed to keep the public aware so that they can safely protect themselves and protect their families. So the airport is one of the economic pillars in this country, and part of my responsibility on the airport is to ensure that fire safety is upheld, fire prevention techniques is maintained to ensure that economic pillar and economic driver is maintained for the country of St. Martin.
Thank you very much. We've just spent the last, 2 minutes or so speaking about the why of the importance of a forum such as this. How do we now ensure that persons begin to think fire safety in their homes, whether they're driving in traffic? How do we get persons to think fire safety? Silvanica, I'll allow you to respond to that first.
Anyone can actually Google it and find the regulations online. That's one way. That is a Dutch word, technische brandpreventievoorschriften. So basically are the technical measures to prevent fires. These are also the regulations that are based upon which we advise on any building permit, planning permit, and hindrance permit. That's one way that we deal with it. And also, of course, educate the public. That's why we're having a prevention month. That's why we go into schools. And that's why we're using also a forum like this. Because by all means necessary, we want to educate so that everybody can think fire safety and make good choices when it comes to enjoying our daily lives. Because life is to be enjoyed. And to enjoy, we need to be able to handle the risk and go through the day without accidents.
He says life is to be enjoyed. One of the things that makes life enjoyable is when somebody can say, I own my own home. But in building those homes, building your nice nest, your family nest, there are certain requirements that you must adhere to. So, Mr. Bailey, when it comes to issuing permits for new buildings, what are the key factors, key fire safety regulations that must be met to ensure public safety?
But we make sure that what they need, as in the walls indications, as in what is green, what is red, when it's 30 minutes or 60 minutes, which wall is 60 minutes. For sure, the kitchen has to be at least 60 minutes to be viable for a building permit, because there is where the fire most likely will start. And to help people from getting injured or any kind of harm, they need somewhere that they could be safe. So some safety measures that we look into in a kitchen is that we put heat detectors in the kitchen and smoke detectors in the living room and in the bedrooms and in the halls. These are some of the requirements that we look into before even sending it to the fire department for them to either approve it or disapprove, because they might see things that we at the permits department have not seen because it's not our expertise. So with that, there are certain buildings that we also send, like apartment buildings for sure, that need certain more fire safety into it. Restaurants, commercial buildings. These are things that really we send over to the fire department for evaluation. If you have a home and you're turning and you have more than 5 units, we need certain fire safety measures in those homes that we know that the residents of those homes are safe, and well, prevention is better than cure.
Indeed. You're mentioning the regulation that needs to be met in terms of building, but we know in St. Martin there are a lot of persons who are tenants. They're not builders. They don't own their buildings. And I get the impression that when you are preparing to rent a space, many persons underestimate the importance of having something as a fire extinguisher available in their apartment or in a unit. How important is it for somebody who's about to rent a space to consider fire prevention measures that are in place in that unit? And if not, I guess sound the alarm on it, for example. How important is it?
It's very important. It's for your own safety. The fire department, the issue, will be the one more likely to respond to something like that. In our department, we basically make sure that the drawings are to code. But when it comes to people living in the homes, that's their safety they have to take in consider, as in making sure the fire alarms work, making sure the fire extinguishers work, or are they up to date? Those are some personal things that you have to keep in mind to keep safe within the home that you are renting in. Because Rami is not going to come into your house and look and check and see if your fire safety is up to date.
If we think that maintaining an apartment or a unit is a big task, the airport is much more massive. And when you have that person who is in charge of fire prevention and fire safety on the airport, we tend to overlook the magnitude of that task. So, Mr. George, when it comes to what you do in relation to PGIE, can you share a little bit more about that? Because the airport and fire safety is not something that automatically comes to mind when we think about fire safety and prevention. So can you share with us a little bit of what you do at the airport?
So the airport falls under the category of a terminal building, airport terminal building. So in that terminal building, there are a lot of safety mechanisms that has to be in place. For example, the detection and monitoring system, the fire alarm system, the fire suppression system, the water sprinkler system, also the clean agent suppression system. Those are systems that are in place to first monitor and detect, and in the event that there is a fire, it will identify and extinguish a fire. During the reconstruction of the airport, the compartments or the rooms within the airport, they are supposed to be rated to a certain minute rating between 60 and 120 minutes. So in the event that there's a fire, the fire would not spread to other compartments. So that also involves sealing all the openings with fire-rated material and fire stops. So my responsibility really and truly falls more after the reconstruction and the prevention and monitoring and the visual inspection of these systems. Once these systems reach their frequent technical maintenance frequency, then it's our responsibility to call the technicians who are qualified to maintain and test these items per standard.
Thank you very much. I want to switch it from your point of view to the point of view of a passenger, someone who's about to board or preparing to board their flight. If imagine that I'm a passenger and I'm traveling in a month's time, what safety measures, how can I think fire safety as a passenger when I'm in the airport?
Most passengers don't think about fire safety. Most passengers just want to get on the flight and depart. So it's really up to the airport community to guide and direct passengers. For example, in the event of a building evacuation, most people would not look to see where exit sign is located. You have some people who are, by second nature, they would always monitor these things, but the majority of people would not. So it's up to the airport and its community to guide people and direct people in the event, for example, of a building evacuation. Throughout the terminal building, there are fire hose reels that are charged with water. There are extinguishers, multi-purpose extinguishers, and fire cabinets that are there in the event that if there's a small fire, the airport community or if a passenger knows how to use an extinguisher can take up that extinguisher and use it. But they are more designed for small incipient fires. So again, it boils back to the airport community in being that safety officer or being that fire warden to protect the passengers. Because again, the airport is one of the economic drivers of this country.
Indeed.
So we have to ensure that we cross our T's and dots our I's.
So you heard it here first. If you're preparing to travel in the next week or so, at least look to see where the exit signs are. So if anything should happen, God forbid, you will know where to go. Mr. Richardson, you've worked as a fire prevention officer for 22 years. You would have heard and seen a lot. I want you to help us to understand this. What are some of the misconceptions people have about fire safety, and how can we as a community work to dispel them?
The misconceptions is not really misconceptions, but the public, when they hear fire, they only think fire department. We have to start by knowing we have the guys that go out on the truck that comes to out the fire. And that is what the public always sees. That's why this forum here is to introduce the public to the prevention department, where it starts from the beginning. As Mr. Bailey said, the drawings comes to the fire department. And from those drawings, we have to start with accessibility to the building. So how persons is accessing the building, how our firefighters will access the building in event of a fire. Then we move on from accessibility of the building to the tools that we need outside the building. That would be fire hydrants. Or if there's anywhere we could draw water from. Those are stuff we look. Then we go into the building. But before we go into the building, we are seeing how high the building is. Because determined on the height of the building, we know how long the building will burn before it collapses. So all those things we take in consideration. Then when we get into the building, we go to the fire compartments. So fire compartments are a room, say one section of the building, we're gonna say, for this section of the building, the fire should stay there an hour before it moves to a next section of the building. So we're trying to keep the fires at a minimum.
Yes.
So within the fire compartment, then we have the sub-compartments, which will be rooms, say like this meeting room or a bedroom in an apartment building. Then after those, we go over to what we need for people to escape out of the building. Now we go to the saving lives part. So according to the building again, we have a fire alarm system, which is a whole complete fire alarm, or we have just some smoke detectors hooked up to the electricity. Then that's to sound that something is wrong in the building. First event, smoke, because smoke is the one that kills. The fire burns you, but smoke kills. So now to exit the building, we have the exit signs and also emergency lights. Emergency lights are there for firefighters and also for people who are in the building. It's a light that comes on, but it's not, say, to light up the whole area, but just a little light that the firefighters could come in the building, do their search and rescue, or extinguish, and also for persons to, while escaping, that they have enough visibility to exit the building. Then when we go over to the fire part, you see a fire, you have the hose reels, those are European hose reels, not like the American hose reels. If you see the difference, you will see white hose reels that are folded. Those are the American hose reels. Those hose reels are for the firefighters. So when there's a fire in America, the Americans, the firefighters come, they use that hose reel. The reason why, with that hose reel, you have to stretch it out completely, then turn on the water. But now with the European hose reels, it's just like your normal garden hose. You just turn on the water. If you have to go right there, you go and you extinguish the fire. And with extinguishing the fire is only if it's safe to do so. That's why we preach. Then from there, after extinguishing the fire, you also have your extinguishers.
Yes.
And you had asked a question on the emergency lights and so in a building,
Yes.
if the tourist needs to know that. But that goes over now for the ones that is used in the building. So like, for instance, the airport, we'll go over into giving training for the persons, the fire wardens. So they will be the ones in charge of every day when you pass, you watch to see if an extinguisher is good, if the emergency escape route is clear. All those, that is a different subject within the fire safety.
Yes.
So with the drawings, we make sure all those things is in place. So sprinkler system, hose reels, alarm system, all those must be in place. Then it gets approved by the fire department and goes back to building permits department. At the building permits department, then it goes into your building permit. Then you get your building permit. So after that, while building, fire department will come again on inspections to see if you're building according to what's in the drawings.
Wow. The very, very detailed description about the operation of fire safety and so forth. But I'm listening to you, and what came to mind is that there's a jarring reality that many persons who are, can we call them the ordinary citizen? They're sitting at home, they're watching, they see the fire truck pass from time to time. These persons, we could assume safely that many of their apartments or the units do not have smoke detectors, they don't have a fire extinguisher, there are no emergency lights. How do we start to speak to them directly? And Mr. Polity, you could probably chime in too, in terms of fire prevention, thinking fire safety. When you're leaving the home, ensure that your iron is plugged out. Ensure that the candle that you left on isn't by the curtain and it's off. Ensuring that anything that needs to be plugged in, or that needs to be unplugged, is not plugged in. Ensuring that a lot of things that people do constantly, do not leave your phones charging on your bed because anything can happen. How do we get persons to start to think like that?
Thank you, Mr. Ming. That brings it down to the theme that the fire department is championing these days. Think fire safety. For you to enjoy life, you got to think fire safety. That, which is very basic. You heard all the details, how you could take measures. But for everybody listening and watching, think fire safety means, can I get on time out of the building that I'm in right now? If there's a fire. If there's a fire by the entrance, where is the second exit for me to get out? And whoever else is with me, how can I get them on time out of this building? And God forbid, if we get trapped in this building, is the building safe enough that the firefighters can come in and rescue us? These are the themes when we talk and think fire safety. I don't want to lose my property. So when I'm leaving, did I unplug the charger of my phone and my laptop, my fan, the items that usually overheat and that my colleagues has to jump on the truck for and come to assist you as you passing through terrible moments, as you losing your property, and God forbid, worse yet, that you even have somebody inside. So once again, Think Fire Safety is about being able to enjoy life, and in case something happens, that you can get out of the building without injuries and without the loss of life.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bailey,
I would like to add
sure.
That when it comes to access, we also looked at in the building permit, because if you don't have a proper access, your building permit can be denied under Article 22, subsection 6, which states that if you don't have proper access for government vehicles, you can be denied for your building permit. So people who are putting up these big development, we make sure that they have proper access for especially the fire trucks and the ambulance when putting in their building permit as their infrastructure permit. Another thing we also look at, depends on the height, we require people to put in at least a second stairway, because elevators are not feasible when it comes to fire. So we need at least 2 stairways to be able to make sure that people can be safely extracted from the building. Because if one end of the building has a fire, you may have to go the other direction to get out of the building safety, and the fire department can also use that other stairs to get into the building, because their safety is also important.
Let's continue speaking to the builders. Yes? Would you agree with me in saying that a part of thinking fire safety is thinking about the concerns of your tenants to a greater degree, in terms of what if something should happen in my apartment and my tenants are trapped inside? How will they get out? What will they do to protect themselves? Is that a part of thinking fire safety? Would you agree?
Yes, and I would say that won't be really the tenants or even the contractor. That is mostly will be the architect. That is where it starts.
Okay.
Because your architect is the one that designs your building. You tell him, yo, I would like to have a 5 2-bedroom apartment complex, and they have to be the one thinking, okay, with this distance, can this person be able to get out of this building on a safety time frame? Or even in a warehouse, if somebody is working in a warehouse, can they reach a fire extinguisher or a hose reel in time to be able to out a fire, or to even get out of the warehouse space? Because warehouse space are a big open space,
Yeah.
with lots of obstacles that sometimes catch a fire quickly, because there's no walls within there.
Yes.
So you need to know where are your exits and where the hose reel or the signatures are, so you could be safe. And also, this is why we tell people, even though you're renovating your building, it's best you put in for a new building permit.
Yes.
Because whatever you do, the fire department will have an idea when we send the drawings back over to them to see what is the best strategy for that building. So it's always good, even though you're renovating, I just take down this wall, but that wall may cause a fire to spread quickly.
Yes.
So it's always good to, even though you're renovating a space, come to the building permit department or the fire safety department and see if it's really feasible or doable.
Thank you very much. Mr. George, I know you mentioned, persons need to be, especially travelers, need to be aware of where things like your exit signs are. But are there any specific, when you think about your experience so far and what you've observed and the behaviors of travelers, what should travelers keep in mind to ensure their own safety in a high traffic area like the airport? Maybe a specific scenario might bring something to light.
not only on the airport, but in public spaces,
Okay.
commercial type buildings. As a visitor of any commercial building, one of the most important thing you want to know is how to get out. How to get out of the building. When you enter the structure, where is the nearest exit to get out in the event that the building needs to evacuate? So, like I said, not only for the airport, we as people, and even in our fire department, we have a public campaign on the airport in which we continuously train our staff, the entire airport community, in how to exit the building, the nearest route, and how to exit the building. And again, it falls back on the airport community with people who don't know the building.
Yes.
You are the ones who have to guide them safely out of the building. And even when you get out of the building, there are things called assembly points or muster points, in which you muster in a safe area until it is deemed safe by the airport authority or the fire department or even the government fire department if they respond to any of the public buildings to ensure that the building is safe before you can enter the building. So again, it's back on the persons who work in these commercial spaces to inform the visitors or even passengers alike where the nearest exit route is. And as a passenger and even again as an ordinary lay person, pay attention to exit signs, pay attention to the evacuation plans. Most commercial buildings would have evacuation plans hang up on the wall. It would tell you, you are here and the nearest exit is to your left, 50 meters down or 20 meters down, or to your right, 20 meters down. So these are things that you as an individual can pay attention to, and in the event, you know where to exit.
You mentioned commercial areas, and we know that our small and medium enterprises they form the backbone of our economy. What advice would we give to the small business owners on fire prevention and compliance with fire safety regulations? And anybody can chime in if they feel so fit. I see Mr. Richardson has picked up his mic.
Okay, for the smaller businesses, what we tend to see is we also advise on operational license of the prevention department. So we get to do inspections of many bars in small operations like that.
Okay.
What pertains to, say, flammable stuff. So what we see, the culture is that I'm going to open a bar or a restaurant, and they're only thinking about opening the bar and restaurant. Most of the people, some that did it before or work with someone, you will see them asking what size extinguisher, what we have to get in place. But most of the time, it's just we opening a restaurant, we opening a bar, we only thinking of opening a bar. So what we just end up having to do is teach, give a small class on fire safety and explain why you need an extinguisher, why you need a smoke detector. But seem like that is part of our job. We also get over, by doing that, we bring over the fire safety education. I saw one building I went to as an inspector, and it was like a back and forth to put up emergency lights. Eventually, the person said, yes, they're going to do it, and they had to give a whole story why. And one Monday, on the job, the same person came into the fire department and started thanking us. Boy, GB went, the place was totally dark, and now I see why the emergency lights are there. So when you get those feedback, you feel, okay, it came over, we did, it was a job well done.
I'm curious to know though, why do you think there will be resistance towards that? Something as simple but as important as just putting up an exit sign. Why do you think there's resistance?
It's not really resistance, it's where the mindset is. They are only thinking of, okay, let's put it this, We opening a bar, we're gonna make money. But they forget they have to make the place safe. You having people come into your bar.
Yes.
First, how are you gonna get the people out of your bar? There's prevention department is all about saving lives. So the first thing we think is getting the people out of the bar. So even by our existing building that did not have all the fire safety equipment in it, what we do, the first thing, we say, okay, you have a certain time frame to get this building up to par. But the first things you do is put in the stuff to get the people out of the building. So that means your emergency lights, your exit signs, your fire alarm. Those are the first. Maybe the building need to get compartments that the fire don't spread. We'll give you a time frame on getting those in place. But the first thing is get persons out of the building. And for the general public out there, when you go away, the first thing you do as you check in the hotel, you look for the signs. I am here. Exit is over there. Those are the first things as a fire prevention officer. When I go to a hotel, first thing I look for. And last summer, not this summer gone, but summer before,
Yes.
I traveled with my kids. And I show them those small things to do. And every place we end up, that's the first thing they start to look for. And that's why we say we go out to the schools and we start with the kids. Because the kids would always say, Mom, Dad, look at that, look at that, look at that.
Yes. You mentioned training too. I saw the mic was about to be picked up on this side. I'll take your point. Just let me ask this quickly. You mentioned training for commercial owners. Do they have to? Well, how can a business owner get the type of training for his or her staff? Do they come to the fire department and ask, or there's another way?
Right now, they are coming to the fire department.
Okay.
We are giving that course. Mr. Pauletta could elaborate a little more
Sure.
on the course.
The fire department at the moment, we just get many requests from the business community, also from the education sector, and also the general community on how can they get more knowledge and skills as a first responder. Because let's be real, any fire happens, before the fire department arrives, there's already somebody from the community there. So the community is actually the first responder. So that's why we're getting these requests, and the fire department, in collaboration with the Foundation of Firefighters, we provide courses to the community, to government, to the business sector in what to do as a first responder, what to do when there is a fire, and even more important, what to do to prevent the fire. That is what we train, and we are happy to train that so that, as Mr. Richardson just said, so that people get educated and understand not only what to do in case of a fire, but how to prevent one. Because your question earlier regarding the resistance, some people don't know, they think fire safety is expensive, but if you think fire safety is expensive, try the cost of a fire. So therefore, we educate, and so that everybody can be on board to prevent fires. Yes, my colleagues, we are there. We love our job, we love to respond and assist and help, but we don't like to see the misery that a fire causes. And that's why think fire safety. And if you're interested in getting the training of a firewall, please contact the fire department.
If you think fire safety is expensive,
It is expensive. I think what people have to look at fire safety as a insurance policy. You don't want to pay the insurance policy, but it pays off at the end.
yes.
And at the end of the day, the fire department, both our fire department and the government fire department, saving lives is the highest priority.
Yes.
So you pay for this level of insurance to ensure that lives are saved, because the property get damaged, you could easily request a building permit from our colleagues from the government
Yes.
and rebuild the building. But if a life is lost, you can't get a building permit
Yep.
to replace that life. So it's on us and it's on the community at large to ensure that you're protecting your family is what is utmost important. So, ensure that you have all the fire safety components especially in your private home. Monitor it as much as you can
Yes.
because it's in your best interest at the end of the day.
Mr. Bailey, I hope you didn't lose your train of thought.
No, I lost my train of thought. What I was with my esteemed colleagues when they stated with the commercial, as my colleague Kurt stated, they feel like they don't need it. However, it's an investment that they are putting into that business. And to protect their business, they should put in their fire safety constituents in to protect that investment, because you could say you spend, let's say, 100,000 to get your business up and running, and a fire could take it away in seconds. So, as my colleague from the airport stated, he have to keep in mind of insurance that he ensuring that his investment that he put in the business is secure. Another thing that my colleagues have stated, which I agree with, there's a lot of buildings that are being turned into commercial, and they don't have the fire safety aspect within them because there were more residential homes. When you're starting a business and you want to rent out a unit, I would say check and see where are the exits. Are there multiple exits that you could get out of that building? I will also check and see what fire prevention that's within that building. Because if there's none, then yes, putting in the fire safety compartments and so forth will be expensive, but again, you have to secure your investment that you put into that building. And also, I would like to say that when they're putting in those separate departments that they have to put in, especially if you're making a house into a restaurant or a bar, please come and see the building permit department and and just don't do what you think is right. And then when you do come and we say, nope, can't work, that's a waste of money that your architect, that you just pay your architect, and
Yes.
that could be prevented if you just do the right thing and make sure that everything is in place and secure for your business and building that you're renting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. It's fitting that you have the microphone at this time because we know that time is against us where you're concerned. And we know you have to break away from us. We're enjoying your contributions, but we know that you have your responsibilities to fulfill elsewhere. Before you go, I want you to leave a very strong encouragement to the people of St. Martin of why is it important to think fire safety.
Well, to think about fire safety is very important, especially when you want to save lives, save your family, save your investment, save your happiness, save your peace of mind. All of these things come within fire prevention. And we come with a culture that I can take care of that. We shouldn't think that way. Right now, we're in a world that anything could happen, and fire is one of the most devastating disasters that could happen to someone. Somebody could lose their life, somebody could lose their home, their livelihood, everything within minutes or in hours. So, as I said prior, prevention is better than cure. So, St. Martin, please take this very serious and take this information that you're getting from us at a very deep and keep it in your conscience and keep it safe, that you keep your family safe and the people around you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. We applaud you for the work that you've been doing, and we hope and we wish you all the very best for your future. as he takes his leave, we will invite Mr. Merlin Adventurin, who is a senior firefighter, and an educator on first aid and emergency medical response. We'll just allow him to come up to the panel at this time. But as he comes, Mr. Richardson, for those living in areas prone to fire hazards, such as near undeveloped land, what specific actions can they take to protect their homes and property? And I know Mrs. Silvanico can chime in when you finish speaking.
Okay, what we do now is a different section again within prevention, which is your planning permit. So within a planning permit, say if you're going to build a residential area, we go through the planning permit, and that would have an accessibility, and there we will start to place the hydrants. For areas now that where we are getting more calls on fires, we are putting in hydrants in those areas. So when the trucks come, that we have a continuous supply of water, so we could get those fires extinguished as fast as possible. Because we know in some areas the houses are built wooden structures, and that will give the opportunity for one house to burn the other house. So how it works with the fire department, when we get a call, we go to the fire, say house A is burning, but we check house A, B, and C. House B is burning, so we check house A and C. Not for the fire to get bigger, so we start from out in. So we start cooling, protecting C and A, and then we start to extinguish B. So those are the things we think about. We do normally, the shift go out and patrol those areas. You check if the hydrants is working. We do that like annually.
You know, in cases of a fire, we know that the St. Martin Fire Department is very swift in their response. But in some cases, or many cases, you find that when you get on the scene, persons may have already started to do their own thing in terms of trying to deal with the fire. Is that something that is encouraged? What advice do you give towards that?
Okay, it's not something that is encouraged. What is encouraged is if you see a fire, you call the fire department. You leave it up to the experts. You know, we had a culture where my neighbor house is on fire. Let me go try with a garden hose.
Get a bucket.
Let me break a window and try to extinguish the fire. You are just making it worse. Because now you're giving the fire more oxygen. Maybe that room there, it wasn't getting enough oxygen, so the fire will stay in that room. But by breaking the window, you give it more oxygen. And there we get the fire spread into the next room. That also goes with the new furniture, the beautiful furniture that we have.
Oh boy.
That's really fuel for the fire.
Well, Mr. Silvanico, what Mr. Richardson is telling me, that if I just got a new suite of furniture and my passport is in my room and my laptop is there, I should just evacuate as quickly as possible and leave everything to burn. Is that what you're telling me to do as well?
That is exactly what we're telling you to do. And that's why we want you to think fire safety. Think that a fire could happen at any moment. Even when you take the different precautions, you have your smoke detector. Remember, the smoke detector is there to warn you of a fire in an early stage. It's not stopping, it's not preventing a fire from happening, but it's warning you on time, so as we mentioned earlier, so you could leave the building. So as you leave the building, we advise people, think fire safety, so have a grab bag. Have a grab bag with your main essentials, with your important documents. What I advise people as well, also as we live in a hurricane season, You can lose your property. Make sure you have a digital copy of your most important documents. Store them up in the cloud. Make sure nowadays you have the cloud. So secure these items so that you don't lose them unnecessarily. So you don't have to run back into a building because you're afraid, because you panic. Prevent these things by thinking fire safety when there's no fire.
Yes, I think a sub-theme that we could gather from this conversation already is be proactive. Ensure that you have your documents digitally backed up. Ensure you have a grab bag, as you said. Ladies and gentlemen, you could lose a passport, you could lose a laptop, and get it back. But when you lose a life, that's a hard pill to swallow. Mr. Adventurin, senior firefighter, educator, first aid and emergency medical responses. He's smiling because he has so much information to give already. Can you just begin by giving us a little bit more insight on what you do?
Thanks for having me and as a panelist. And fires are, let's put it like this, unfortunate things, again, and because of this very important discussion here today about safety. Fires are unpredictable. However, in the event that we have fires going on, one of the most important things is that we want to save a life. And fires, depending on the nature of fires, one can get injured. And apart from having your property burned and losing everything, there's also some events where you have people try to make rescues. Second nature. My grandmother's in there, let me run and go and get a book, and next thing you look, because of the heat of the fire, you end up with first-degree burns, sometimes second-degree burns, and stuff like that. The basic thing is I would like to, when it comes to burns, I'm talking about burns,
Yes.
and due to fires, where you, one of the first things you want to do is make sure that you try to cool that burn area as fast as possible. Now, some people will say, yeah, the fire truck reach, we could use the water from the fire truck. No, but that water in the fire truck would be a little too hot to do that because it goes through a pump. So you get by your neighbor, you get bottles of water, and you try to cool the fire as fast as possible just to dilute the burning process. The burning process is what you want to submerge, you want to reduce it, and that will limit the damage to the person's skin and the degree, the level of burns. So you want to make sure that once you do that also, you will have to probably remove the loose burn clothing, not that the ones that is actually attached to the skin. You don't want to do that. You just want to make sure that also that you get the person away from the fire. You want to make sure that when you do that, that you also inform, notify the ambulance, notify whoever is there to call the ambulance, because you want to make sure too that these persons, depending on the level of degree of burns, that they get proper treatment also for it. Because burns, when burns start, and the longer you stay without cooling it down, the worse it gets. One of the things that we don't do also is we don't go and put oily stuff like butter, grease, and all those kind of things on burns. Those are products that enhance the burning process. Simple water cooling for about 20 minutes or more. The longer you cool, the better it is to reducing the severity of the burn.
Thank you very much. You know, these forums are so massively important, and it can prevent so much heartache. Just this week, and I'll say this before I give this scenario, this did not happen on St. Martin, but it's Caribbean news. There was a family, the parents, I believe, they were trying to cut open a gas cylinder using a flame torch. Long story short, it blew up and your child died. Now, Mr. Adventurin, when you hear a situation like that, and you consider the negligence that was being carried out in that situation, how do we now speak to people and to prevent these type of situations from happening, especially locally, because we don't ever want to hear a situation like that happening on St. Martin? Speak to somebody today and encourage them.
In a situation like that, when it comes to negligence, you call that negligence, persons should think before they do certain things. Okay, and for instance, they sort of take the whole aspect of living for granted, not paying attention to the different dangers that is around them, or even having thinking about the consequences of their mere action. That everything they look at as, okay, you know, I could do this, but yes, if I do this, what are the consequences thereof? Am I doing it right? Am I taking the necessary safety precautions into consideration? And a lot of injuries can be avoided if we pay attention to, I'm doing this, am I doing it right? Okay? I'm going to light the stove, but I'm going to turn on the gas, then I'm going to look for the matches, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to scrape the match. What do you think going to happen in that period of time that you left on the gas, went to get the matches, then come back and light it? You're going to get injuries. Okay? And in this time here, we are trying to get people to be more ascertain, be more responsible, and think, stop, think, and act on, am I doing it right? This is the right way. How can I prevent myself from getting injured? Especially when you have children involved, infants involved, senior citizens involved, a grandmother, a grandfather in the house. When you go to do those kind of things, because they are your responsibility. So you need to think about what you're doing, the consequences thereof.
Very, very powerful encouragement by Mr. Adventurin. And on that point, we'll just allow the other panelists to just leave with us final encouragement about thinking fire safety, thinking fire prevention, and your overall well-being as a St. Martin citizen. We can start or continue with Mr. George right on my right here.
In our fire department, we have something called dynamic risk assessment. We use that to assess almost every situation. And dynamic assessment basically means that understanding that things can rapidly change, and you have to be able to change with those changes. And we continuously analyze risk and hazards, and depending on what the ratio is, if the risk is greater than the benefits, you take a particular approach. If the benefits is greater than the risk, you take a particular approach. So my encouragement to people, to everyone, is analyze your fire safety components. Analyze what you have going on inside of your home. If you feel that you do not have enough fire safety components, or if you feel that you do not have enough fire safety aspects, ask a question. You can research it, you can go on YouTube. If you don't want to do all of that, you have a friend working in the fire department, you can call him for advice. Do the research and get the information so that you can make sound choices and sound judgment. Fire safety is for everyone. In the fire department, lives is the priority over property always. But at the end of the day, property is expensive when you lose it.
Yes.
So you have to do your due diligence to ensure that you are protecting your property, and more so that you are protecting your life and the lives of your family, because your family and you can be in any home. You could go to a friend home, you could go to a family home, your children, you, and maybe they themselves are not taking those standard precautions to ensure that fire safety is mitigated in their home.
Yes.
And you become injured and your family become injured. You know, so you could do your due diligence, but your neighbor is not doing the due diligence. As Mr. Kirk mentioned, you have home B is on fire, but home A is taking the due diligence to ensure that everything is protected, the fire safety components, everything is good, but
Yes.
home B is burning and it's going to affect home A.
Yes.
So do your due diligence. If you're not informed, try to become informed, get the information, and try to make as much sound judgment and apply risk analysis in your decision making.
Powerful. Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan. Mr. Silvanico, and in your closing, you could just mention the best ways for residents to report cases of fire quickly.
Best cases to report, and this goes to anyone reside on St. Martin. Any fire you see, call 919. Before you respond to the fire, call 919, and then take due diligence, do your risk assessment before you act. What I like to, with my closing remarks, I would like to also advise anyone, we are pushing Think Fire Safety because that's the way to enjoy life. Let's break with this thing about, oh, I'm not going to think about it because I'm calling it upon me. If you don't think about it now, later you will be saying, I could have, I should have, I would have. That's what we want to prevent. So when you think fire safety, you're not calling it upon you, you're preventing the worst to happen. If you think fire safety is expensive, think twice about the cost of not applying fire safety. Think of the cost of losing your property, being responsible for other lives that has been lost, or people being marked for life because of you not applying fire safety. And think of the cost of losing your good name and the consequences that you have to carry because. So let's prevent that and let's think fire safety. Let's enjoy life and get our fires or smoke detectors in place. When we leave our homes, let's unplug the adapters. If I'm going for a longer period, plug out the TV. That TV is not only consuming and adding up to your GB bill, it's also a risk that you're leaving behind. So, as you move around, think fire safety. As you burn the garbage in your yard, think fire safety. It's not just your home can go, the one from your neighbor as well. So, when you see a fire, once again, think fire department, think 919, and think what you can do to prevent worse from happening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson.
It is good to see that we had this forum today, that we could have enlightened you all, the guests that is watching, what the fire prevention department is all about. Some of our partners that we work with were here today on this panel, and we are happy to have them here. And what I will leave with you is, again, think fire safety. When you leave your home, as Mr. Pauletta said, turn everything off, don't overload outlets. And also, we were talking about the green energy, where we moved over to the green energy. Solar panels comes with batteries. And for the fire department, the batteries are our enemies, because the batteries are made up of cells. And these cells has to burn out for the battery to completely burn out. So with saying that, if you see your battery from your tablet or from your phone or your solar panels start to swell, get rid of them. Try get rid of them in a good manner. Replace them with new ones, because that is the beginning of a definite fire. And those batteries could burn down your house, your neighbor house, and you will lose everything. So think fire safety, watch around the house, see what you need for as fire safety equipment. Just put it in the back of your head. If you have any questions, you come to the prevention department and ask us those questions. We are here for you. I would like to thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. With that, we've come to the end of our forum today. We want to thank again our panelists, Mr. Kirk Richardson, Mr. Samuel George, Mr. Silvanico Pauletta, Mr. Merlin Adventurin, who joined us, and even Mr. Timothy Bailey, who had to step out a few moments ago. And of course, our friends from DECOM, we want to thank you for making this possible. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Martin, Fire Department. Thank you for watching. And we encourage you to think about the well-being of yourself and others. Think fire prevention. Think fire safety. All the best.